Today we're going to talk about a very powerful idea that can transform the lives of children around the world. It's an idea that's simple, that's easy to implement, and that costs little or nothing. But it does require that we join together to accomplish it. But even that's good news, because we're living in the participation age. We're not just consuming culture, we're creating it together. And when it comes to medicine, participatory medicine, taking charge of our own health, is fundamental to transforming healthcare. And participatory public health enables us to tackle the world's biggest health problems together. We can't just rely on public institutions to get the job done, as important as they are, if we want to change huge things fast. So today we're going to talk about a global, historic campaign called TICC TOCC. It's a participatory campaign. But first, we have to set the stage. There are a few things you need to know. There are two atoms that are very common, very plentiful, but that all too often do not end up in the right place at the right time. And the consequences for children's health, for their developing brains, for the neurons in their developing brains, are immense. The first of these is oxygen. I can remember when each of my own children were born, this sense of joy and relief when I heard their first cry. Their lungs were filled with air. It's an instinctive thing in us parents to feel great when they cry and not good when we don't hear anything. The first minute of life is often called the golden minute because it's so important. And the reason that it's called the golden minute is that there is a huge difference between babies who get enough oxygen in that first minute after being born and those who don't get enough. In fact, the World Health Organization has estimated that 29% of all newborn deaths around the planet come from not getting enough oxygen at birth. We call it birth asphyxia. And that's just part of the problem. There's 1 million kids who die every year from not getting enough oxygen. There's another million or even more who get enough oxygen to survive, but not enough to thrive. And they're left with lifelong consequences like cerebral palsy or epilepsy or learning disabilities or developmental delay. And even that's not the whole story. 1 in 10 newborns around the world, in some places 1 in 7, get suboptimal amounts of oxygen at birth. In public health, there's this concept that's really useful called disability-adjusted life years, or a related concept, quality-adjusted life years. And very simply, it's a measure of health. It's the number of years of health that are lost because of disability or disease or death. And when you look around the planet at loss of health in childhood, far and away the number one cause of kids losing health is not getting enough oxygen in the first minutes of life. The stakes couldn't get any higher than this for children's health. So how do we solve it? Well, one solution, of course, would be if we could just get an oxygen canister in every village and in every room where a baby's born. We could solve it. It's simple, but not easy to implement and not inexpensive, especially when you talk about refilling the oxygen canisters. This would get really tough. Another solution would be just to get a simple bag and mask into the rooms where babies are born. It's a lot cheaper than an oxygen canister. Just pushing room air into the baby's lungs has enough oxygen to make a difference. But again, it's not easy to implement. Another solution would be to train childbirth attendants. There's a really cool coalition called Helping Babies Breathe, and they're dedicated to making the golden minute successful for babies. And their goal is to have a trained, certified birth attendant at every delivery in the world by 2015. It's a great goal, an ambitious goal. Support them. But the idea we're going to talk about today is simpler, easier to implement, cheaper, can make change faster, and makes all the other interventions more effective. Now, the other atom that we need to consider today represents a problem that's even more widespread than not getting enough oxygen, and that's not getting enough iron. Iron is central to our lifeblood. It's what allows our blood to carry oxygen to our brains and to other organs. And iron, when we don't have enough iron, we don't make enough red cells. It's called iron deficiency anemia, and it's one of the world's biggest public health problems. Iron deficiency anemia can cause poor gross motor development, it can cause poor memory, it can cause fatigue, it can cause you to get sick more often and have a harder time getting better. But when it comes to iron deficiency anemia is just the tip of the iceberg. Because a lot of people have normal red blood cells, but are still iron deficient enough to affect their intelligence, perhaps forever. Somewhere around 2 billion people on our planet have lost intelligence because of iron deficiency. It's a huge problem. The World Health Organization estimates that if we could just fix that one problem in a developing nation, just fix iron deficiency, we would increase their productivity by 20%, their GNP by 20%. Huge health and economic benefit. And it's not just developing nations. In the developed world, in the United States, where I come from, iron deficiency is still common. The latest estimate in the United States is that kids today who are 0 to 5 years old in the US together have lost 9 million IQ points from not getting enough iron. That's in the US. At a staggering price tag of about $100 billion for those kids in lifetime lost earnings because of their decreased intelligence. So if we were to spend billions of dollars to fix iron deficiency, it'd be a good investment. And one way to deal with the problem would be to manufacture and package and distribute iron supplements all over the world. And there's people doing that. It's a great idea, but it still hasn't. Tens of millions of kids have been helped, but it hasn't solved the problem. Another idea would be to distribute iron supplements to pregnant women around the world. There are fewer of them. It would help the moms. It would help the babies. Great idea. I support a group called Vitamin Angels that's doing that. I've traveled with them to villages that have never seen a doctor before and seen the impact of getting iron and other micronutrients to them. It's very cost-effective. It's very cool. Another way of solving the iron problem would be to fortify all of our infant formula and all of our cereals, infant cereals, with iron. And that's the leading solution in the West. But there's something kind of off-kilter about that solution. And here's the clue. Among the highest risk kids in the world for iron deficiency are the babies who are exclusively breastfed for longer than 6 months. And to me, I found that really counterintuitive, right? Because breast milk, human milk, is the perfect food for human babies. Why would those be the ones at risk? I mean, it's got the right nutrients. Here it is. Breast milk is, quote unquote, low in vitamin D because, presumably, historically, babies got vitamin D from the sun. Today, they spend most of their life indoors. And breast milk is historically, or is quote-unquote low in iron, presumably because historically they got it a different way, and not from boxed cereal and infant formula. So I want to tell you an idea now that I want you to remember for the rest of your lives. It's time to get to the solution here. I want to ring a bell that can't be unrung to change your perception. And here's the idea. At the moment a baby is born anywhere on the planet, a third of their blood is outside their body. The circulation that's been nourishing them through all of development, a third of it is still outside their body at the moment of birth. And for all of human history, for as long as we have been humans until very recently, what happened was this beautiful thing. The baby would emerge, and then you would see the umbilical cord would start pulsing, pumping, pushing blood into the baby. And the baby would get about 30% more blood during the 90 seconds or so longer than we currently allow the blood to flow. So what happened? What's this 30% extra blood do? Well, first of all, they're basically getting iron supplements. Without the packaging, without the manufacture, without the distribution, they're getting iron-rich blood, enough iron to last them for months and largely eliminate iron deficiency anemia in kids without cost. They're not just getting iron, though. They're also getting oxygen. Before a baby's born, they get all of their oxygen through the umbilical cord. And in that golden minute after they're born and all the circulation is changing around and the lungs are starting to open up, they're still getting oxygen through the cord. During that golden minute while the lungs are getting set up, oxygen's coming through. And it's not just oxygen. They get red blood cells, the only cells in the body that can carry oxygen. They get 30% more blood volume, 60% more red blood cells in that extra 90 seconds. It's red cell rich blood. It's a packed red blood cell transfusion. Recently Lance Armstrong has made the news, even though he never tested positive for drugs in his blood. But allegedly, his wins at the Tour de France came in part because he was infusing himself with his own red blood cells. And that's a technique we know works. When you get extra red blood cells, you have extra strength, extra endurance, and it's been the state of nature for newborns since the beginning of human history to get this packed red blood cells. And it's not just red blood cells, it's even richer in white blood cells comparatively. I said that lack of oxygen is the biggest cause of loss of health, but the most immediate cause of newborn death is infections. 32% of all newborn deaths are from infections. And the umbilical cord blood is rich in white blood cells to fight infections and antibodies that mom has created. And perhaps the most important thing is that umbilical cord blood is packed with stem cells. These cells with genetic potential to prevent and repair damage throughout the body. You'll be learning more about stem cells later today, but just one example. We've learned just in recent years that muscular dystrophy that we used to think was primarily damage to the muscles isn't. It's primarily damage to the stem cells that repair muscle damage. Babies throughout most of history have gotten what's a cutting-edge medical treatment, an autologous stem cell transplant at birth as the course of nature. But in 1913, an idea took hold in the West and spread around the globe. And the idea was this: as soon as a baby emerges, to clamp the cord, to surgically clamp it, to cut off, to choke off the supply of oxygen, to cut off the flow of blood, to lock out the white blood cells, to lock out the antibodies, and to take that umbilical cord stem cell treasure and throw it in the trash. Which I think is one of the leading reasons that we have chronic illnesses rising in kids today. Now, thankfully, many kids have sufficient reserves to be able to handle that loss, but many don't. So that leads us to the TICC TOCC campaign. Very simple idea: transitioning immediate cord clamping to optimal cord clamping. It's not a business. It's not even a nonprofit. It's a shared idea. Waiting an extra 90 seconds or so till the cord stops pulsing the way we have throughout almost all of human history. This is a powerful participatory idea, and one that's really easy to spread. Far easier to spread than it is to spread supplements or equipment or antibiotics, and certainly than stem cell transplants. It's something that I'm convinced that we can do. And why am I convinced we can do it? Because we've done it before. Back in 1913, when the idea of clamping quickly spread, that was foreign, but it spread across the globe, even to places no physician had ever been, because the 20th century saw what had been unprecedented advances in travel and in communications. It was airplanes and telephones that let it spread. But today, we have the internet. Today, we have mobile technology. Today, we have YouTube. Today, things can spread Gangnam style around the globe faster than you can imagine. On Facebook, there are 1 billion people, and on average, we're only 4.74 degrees of separation. We can reach everywhere. Twitter's even closer, 3.43 degrees of separation. And I've been in the most remote villages that have no electricity, no toilets, but people have cell phones. This is something we can do. Bang! We can take networked bits and get the atoms we need to the developing neurons and to unleash genetic potential. Now, the TikTok movement has a motto. It's a common phrase, first do no harm. I hope you'll never hear it the same way again. Because the first intervention of the 21st century medicine, the first thing that we do for a baby is this surgical clamps and severing that has no evidence base. There's no credible evidence of benefit. There's solid evidence, though, that it depletes iron storage, that it decreases oxygen, that it diminishes oxygen carrying capacity, that it deters our abilities to fight infections, and that it deprives babies of some of the most unique and important cells in their body. If you look up, there's a big scientific evidence showing the safety and benefit of doing it the way nature has always done it. It's often called delayed cord clamping in the literature. I object to the term. It's not late. It's optimal cord clamping. It's on time. So how do we participate in this together? How does a TikTok campaign work? And it couldn't be easier. To participate is only 2 things. First, request optimal cord clamping for your loved ones. And second, share this simple idea with your networks, your social networks, online and off, preferably as loud and as far as you can. But just request it and share it, and that's it. We can change the world. It's not just humans that have done this for all of human history, by the way. Primates, too, have umbilical cords, and they instinctively wait. None of them will sever the cord before it stops pulsing. And it's not just primates. Mammals throughout the world have umbilical cords, and they instinctively wait. A of them will actively sever the cord. They'll wait. Well, today, TikTok, more than 250,000 babies will be born today. For most of them, it'll be clamped immediately and thrown in the trash. This intervention works for kids born by C-section or vaginally, born on time or early, whether you want to bank the cord blood stem cells or not. We can change it. Let's do it. Thanks very much.